Section 8 of Chris and the Wonderful Lamp. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Donald Warren. Chris and the Wonderful Lamp by Albert Stearns. Chris has a change of scene, and the genie a change of masters. Chris was not in the least hurt by his fall. He was on his feet in a moment. Having regained possession of the valise, he started for home, filled with apprehension as to the fate of the wonderful lamp. He knew he had placed it in the bag. There could be no mistake about that. Who had removed it? Huldah, perhaps. She had coveted it. Indeed, she had claimed that it was her property. As this idea occurred to Chris, a cold perspiration started out on his brow, and he broke into a run, which he continued until he reached home. He burst into the sitting room, electrifying his mother with the excited demand, "Where is it?" "Oh, Chris, what has happened now?" cried Mrs. Wagstaff, dropping her sewing and springing to her feet. "Are you worse? Oh, I told the doctor that you ought not to be allowed to go alone. Did you miss the train? And see, Chris, the peach preserves are running out of the bag. You have broken one of the jars." "I guess it got smashed when I jumped off the train," said Chris, "but—" "When you jumped off the train?" exclaimed his mother, clasping her hands in distress. "Oh, Chris, what put it into your head to do that?" "I left something behind," stammered the boy, conscious of the awkwardness and absurdity of his position, "something I'm very particular about taking." "Why, what was it?" "It was that lamp that used to belong to Professor Huxter," acknowledged Chris. "Why, Chris," cried the astonished and distressed lady, "you didn't come back for that?" "Yes, I did, Mother. Do you know where it is? I'm sure I packed it last night." "Well, yes, you did," was the reply. "But I took it out this morning when I put in the preserves. There wasn't room for both." "Where is it now?" asked the boy breathlessly. "I think I left it lying on your bed." "But why did you want to take the old thing?" "I must take it, Mother, or stay at home myself. You see, I want to show it to Cousin Bob." "What interest do you suppose your cousin will have in that ugly old lamp?" almost sobbed the agitated mother. "Oh, Chris, what has been the matter with you lately?" "There's nothing the matter with me, Mother," said Chris, so touched by her emotion that he was strongly tempted to confess the whole truth. "But wait a minute, I must go see if the lamp is all right." As he ran through the hall, he met Dr. Ingalls, who had entered in haste without the ceremony of knocking. "What are you back for?" asked the old gentleman. "I saw you from my office window and thought I'd come over and see what happened to bring you back. Did you miss the train?" "Mother will tell you all about it, sir," responded Chris, as he bounded up the stairs 3 steps at a time, feverishly anxious to assure himself that the lamp had not been confiscated by the envious Huldah. The delicious sensation of relief that he experienced when he saw it lying on the bed quite compensated for the mental suffering of the past few minutes. He snatched it up eagerly, fearful that it would disappear before his very eyes. He felt almost like caressing it. Having carefully wrapped it in an old newspaper, he went downstairs. As he neared the sitting-room door, he heard Dr. Ingalls say, "Humor him, ma'am, by all means. It would be extremely unwise to irritate him and make him more nervous." "Let 'em think what they like," mused Chris, with a sigh of resignation. "They'll change their tune before long." And feeling like a martyr, he entered the room, his treasure under his arm. "I shouldn't have advised you to come back for your lamp, Chris, my lad," said the doctor with a gaiety that was plainly put on. "You might have telegraphed, and your mother would have sent it on by express." Chris mumbled something about being too anxious to bear the waiting. "Why, you take it if you want, dear," said Mrs. Wagstaff. "I'd no idea you thought so much of it, or I shouldn't have taken it out of the bag." "Well, Mrs. Wagstaff," said the doctor, "can we pack the little rascal's valise again and send him off by the 10:30? "I don't know that I can ever do anything with this bag," sighed Chris's mother, gazing ruefully at the valise, which now lay open upon the floor. "The jar of watermelon rind and one of the jars of peaches are broken, and there are peaches all over that beautiful embroidered shirt front that I was so anxious to have your Aunt Sabina see." "Oh, I wouldn't fret about that," said the doctor, who was decidedly nervous. "And besides, we mustn't let Chris be worried about such trifles. See," as he removed the debris from the valise, "the bag is scarcely injured at all. Huldah can repair what little damage is done in no time. You can repack the bag, and Master Chris can be off at 10:30, just as if nothing had happened." "But don't you think you ought to go with him? You or somebody?" asked Mrs. Wagstaff, with an apprehensive glance at Chris. "No, indeed, by no means, ma'am," returned the old gentleman, with a suspiciously boisterous burst of merriment. "You don't want to be bothered by an old fogey like me, do you, Chris? Of course you don't. Ha, ha, ha." "I guess I shall be able to get along by myself, sir," replied Chris, demurely. "Get along by yourself? Of course you will. A bright, healthy, happy lad like you doesn't want an old fogey doctor trotting around after him, does he? Ha, ha." Had ever a boy been placed in such a ridiculous false position before? Chris asked himself. He was strongly inclined to summon the genie and put an end to the mystery at once, but he restrained the impulse, and presently started once more for the station, this time in Dr. Inglis's buggy. "Have a first-rate time at your cousin's, Chris," said the good old doctor in parting with the boy. "Get all the outdoor exercise you can. The more the better. Let's see. The Dusenberry Baseball Club is going to have a match with the Lincolnville Club tomorrow. Why, you'll be just in time. The game is to be played in Lincolnville, and you're one of the Dusenberry 9, if I'm not mistaken." "I was. I'm not now," said Chris, reddening. The fact is, he had been frozen out of the Dusenberry Club a week before for his phenomenally bad playing. It had been generally conceded that most of the club's defeats that season were due to his errors. Dr. Ingalls saw by his last remark he had blundered, and was glad of an excuse to take his leave. "Here comes the train," he said, "and Nancy, old as she is, gets frisky when she sees the cars, so I'll have to be off. Goodbye." This time Chris's journey was accomplished without interruption. At just 11 o'clock he stepped upon the platform at Lincolnville, where he found his cousin awaiting him. "I didn't expect to see you here, Bob," Chris said, as he shook hands with the blue-eyed, freckled-faced little lad who advanced to meet him. "It's lucky you happened to be here. Going to the mill?" "Why, no," replied Bob. "I came on purpose to meet you. We both got the telegrams." "What telegrams?" asked Chris. "Well, your mother's. The first one said you'd be here at 8:40, and I was here to meet you, but you didn't come. Most as soon as I got home, the other one came. I got that in my pocket. Let me see it, will you, Bob?" "Here 'tis." And Bob produced it. It says, "Chris detained. Will take 10:30. Be careful of him. Will write." Those telegram fellows don't pay much attention to punctuation, do they, Chris? Well, how are you feeling? Do you think you can walk as far as the Baptist church? I had to hitch Firefly there, 'cause he can't stand the cars. You might lean on my arm." "What do I want to lean on your arm for?" said Chris snappishly. "I can walk alone. What did you bring your horse for anyway?" "My mother thought you'd have to ride," replied Bob with wide open eyes. "The first telegram said you were awful sick, but you look well enough." "I am well," said Chris. "Your folks think you're sick, though." "Yes, they do," admitted Chris with a smile, in which there was much more of a vexation than mirth. Again was the luckless youth fated to be misunderstood. Bob's countenance was expanded by a grin as he said, "Well, Chris, I calculate I see through the millstone now. So that's your latest scheme for getting out of going to school. If I hated the academy as much as you do, I'd get my father to send me to boarding school. Well, you could—" "Oh, brother," exclaimed Chris impatiently, "come along," as he started for the Baptist church at so rapid a pace that little Bob had to trot very energetically to keep up with him. So his coming had been heralded by telegrams, smuggled out of the house, of course, by Huldah, and they would be followed by a letter detailing all the symptoms of his imagined illness. It seemed certain that his position during his enforced visit to Lincolnville would be quite as ridiculous as he had occupied at home during the past few days. "You ain't mad at me, are you, Chris?" asked Bob timidly, as his companion began unhitching Firefly, a dark frown on his brow. Bob Green cherished the sincerest affection and admiration for his cousin Chris. He firmly believed that Chris was one of the most remarkable boys the country had produced, and was never tired of extolling his talents and acquirements to anyone who would listen. A word or a smile of approval from his cousin meant more to Bob than Chris ever guessed. This constant tacit acknowledgment of an inferiority that really did not exist was gratifying to Chris. as such concessions, whether deserved or not, are to most of us, and he usually adopted a rather patronizing air toward his cousin, quite willing to believe Bob's estimate of him a correct one. "What a funny fellow you are, Bob. You always think a fellow's down on you if he only looks crooked at you." "I thought maybe you didn't like what I said about your not wanting to go to school," ventured Bob, diffidently. "Oh, that's all right," jumped in Bob. "I'll drive. Get along, Firefly." "Now then, Bobby, what's the news?" "Oh, nothing in particular," replied Bob. "We had the sewing circle at our house last night, and I ate so much cake that I haven't felt first rate since. Guess that's about all the news there is, except," and the boy's countenance fell, "that Ned Collins is sick." "Who is Ned Collins?" asked Chris, without much interest. "Don't you remember him? Big, tall fellow with red hair. He's the pitcher in our baseball club, and the match with the Dusenberry Nine has got to be called off because he's sick. It's too bad, but there's no help for it." "Can't you get anybody else to pitch?" asked Chris. "No, there's not a fellow in town that can take Ned's place. He's a daisy pitcher, I tell you, and there's nothing for it but to put off the game till he gets well." "See here," exclaimed Chris in sudden excitement, "maybe there is something for it. Have the Dusenberry fellows been notified?" "Not yet. We're going to send 'em word this afternoon." "Then why can't I take Collins' place?" "You?" gasped Bob, turning a little pale at the idea, a startling one to him. "Why, yes." "Well," Bob stammered, "I don't know what the fellows will say. You see, that is, I mean, we heard that—" "Oh, I know what you heard," interrupted Chris hotly. "You heard that I was a hoodoo. Well, I mean, yeah, that's what you heard. You've been told that the Dusenberry Club couldn't win a game as long as I was a member of it, and that they got rid of me on that account. That's what they say, isn't it?" "Yes, it is," Bob blurted out desperately. "I thought so," said Chris. "Well, now you listen to me, old fellow. Put me in as pitcher tomorrow, and I'll win the game for you as sure as you're born." "Do you mean it?" stammered Bob, his eyes big and round as saucers. "Don't I generally mean what I say?" demanded Chris rather haughtily. Yes, I think you do." "You know I do. I want to get even with those Dusenberry fellows, and I can do it by pitching for your club tomorrow." "I believe you can, Chris," exclaimed Bob, persuaded by Chris's confidence. "Of course I can. I know what I'm talking about, Bob. Just get me appointed pitcher, and, well, you'll see something surprising. I know what I'm talking about." "I'll do all I can, Chris," said Bob, his face flushed with enthusiasm, "and I guess I can manage it." "I know you can manage it. Those Dusenberry fellows wouldn't let me pitch, Bob. I might as well tell you the whole truth. All I could do with them was to play right field, and I wasn't even good enough for that after a few games. I had hard luck, Bob, that's all there is to it. But I know what is in me, and you mark my words, if I pitch tomorrow, you won't be sorry you got me the chance." They had now reached their destination. Mrs. Green stood in the doorway awaiting them. Chris's Aunt Sabina, his mother's sister, was a tall, thin, severe lady, with a high-pitched voice and an acid smile, and a deeply rooted dislike and distrust of boys, which three accomplishments she had acquired during a 20 years' experience as district schoolma'am. "You don't look sick, Christopher," she said, giving him a chilly hand. "Is it your liver? Your father's folks always were an unhealthy lot." Chris replied that he didn't think there was much the matter with him, and ran upstairs with Bob, who was eager to show Chris his new fishing tackle. "Oh, I forgot," said Chris, when the tackle had been inspected and admired. "I got some things for your mother. We better take them down to her." And he opened the bag and took out 2 jars of peaches. The third jar that Mrs. Wagstaff had desired to send had been left out to make room for the lamp. "Who's that for?" asked Bob, picking up the lamp. "It isn't for anybody," returned Chris. "It's mine. Be careful not to rub it," he added nervously. "Guess I shan't hurt it," said Bob. "Most of the plating is worn off anyway." "Give it to me," and Chris snatched it rather rudely from his cousin's hands. "I'm sure I don't want it," sniffed Bob, a little offended. "What did you bring a thing like that with you for?" "It's valuable," said Chris. "It's awful old, and I shouldn't wonder if it's worth a great deal." "I don't believe a junkman would give you 2 cents for it," replied Bob coolly. "Where did you get it?" Chris explained, and then locked the lamp carefully in the valise, saying mysteriously, "You're likely to see more of it in the future. That's no common lamp, Bob." "It's uncommonly ugly," said little Bob. "I guess it won't worry me any if I never see it again. Well, shall we go downstairs?" Chris assented, and the two boys descended to the lower floor, each carefully carrying a jar of peaches. Mrs. Green received the offering with an air of dignity and condescension befitting her rank of ex-schoolma'am, merely remarking, "Your mother always was great on putting up preserves. I'm not saying it to blame her, you understand. We can't all be alike, and it's a wise dispensation of Providence that we can't." After this characteristic speech, to which Chris, with a remorseful glance at the peaches, gurgled in an audible response, Mrs. Green turned jerkily to a severe-looking old lady in a stiff black silk dress and mitts, who sat near the window glaring at Chris and said, "Aunt, this is Christopher Wagstaff. Christopher, this is Mrs. Storms, Mr. Green's aunt, who is spending a few days with us. She occupies the spare room, so you and Robert will have to sleep together." "So you're John Wagstaff's boy, be you?" said Mrs. Storms, surveying Chris as if indignant at his presumption in daring to exist. "You don't look the mite like him. I remember your father, years afore he ever thought of marrying your mother. He was a fine-looking man. Do you go to school?" Chris meekly replied in the affirmative. "What do you study?" These were the first of the regular series of questions. Most schoolboys know them by heart, which Chris had been obliged for years to answer whenever his mother had a caller. He knew what was coming, and with a stifled sigh resigned himself to go through the list. When Mrs. Storm's curiosity had been satisfied, and she had given her victim some good advice, offered with a dismal air of being morally certain that he would never follow it, she dismissed him, and the two boys bolted out. "She's an odd one, isn't she?" said Bob, with a grimace. "She doesn't like me. She said yesterday she was glad I wasn't her boy, and I told her I was glad too. That made her mad, and she complained to father. But he only laughed, and that made her madder yet. What makes some old women so ugly, do you suppose, Chris, and others so nice? But never mind about her. Let's go down to the school. We'll be just in time to see the fellows when they come out, and maybe we can settle the picture business right off." They met the Lincolnville Club boys just outside the high school grounds. The proposition to install Chris's picture was received with very little favor, for several members of the club were familiar with his record. But Bob's eloquence and Chris's earnest assurance that he would certainly win the game for them if they would appoint him made an impression, and a meeting of the members was appointed for 4 o'clock. At that gathering, Chris's absolute confidence in his powers convinced the boys, against their better judgment, that it would be safe to give him the position he desired, and by a unanimous vote it was decided to do so. When Bob delightedly announced this triumph at the supper table, Mrs. Storms stated that baseball had been unknown when she was a girl, and that she never heard of it leading to any good, at which Mrs. Green sighed, and Mr. Green, a timid, nervous little man, who had been about to say something cheerful, coughed objectively and remarked that a good deal could be said on that point. All this did not depress the two boys, however. They had as jolly an evening as was possible under the same roof with the uncompromising Mrs. Storms, and went to bed early. For more than an hour they conversed in whispers about the coming game. Bob's last words before falling asleep were, "I like Ned Collins first rate, but I'm kind of glad he's sick. You'll win the game, Chris. You'll win. You'll—" Then a long sigh announced that the tired boy had yielded to the kindly conqueror, sleep. It was not long before Chris, too, was snoring in as undignified and commonplace a manner as if he had not been the owner of the wonderful lamp and master of all the treasures of the world. Just how long he remained unconscious he never knew, but he was presently awakened by a loud noise, and opening his eyes he saw Bob sitting up in bed, staring at a horrible-looking creature resembling a dragon that stood near the window. "Well, what are your commands?" said the apparition, in a voice that made the window sashes rattle. Chris instantly comprehended the situation. He had placed a lamp under his pillow before going to bed. Either he or Bob had unconsciously rubbed the lamp in his sleep, and the genie had responded. this time appearing in a new and certainly an awe-inspiring shape. "I am not speaking to you," added the genie, turning his fiery eyes on Chris. "This young man is my master now." End of section 8.